looking. Oh, you know what? I'll talk to you. I'll let you know. Well, I can tell you now because.
COVID-19, why you do this to me? I really don't like being stuck in quarantine. I have no toilet paper, I don't even have a snack. Hey, coronavirus, I want my life back.
A good Thursday evening, Isolators. How are you all doing today? It's a busy show. In a few minutes, I'm going to be talking to the CEO from the Canadian Association of Mental Health about a new study that was released this morning that really paints a very troubling picture of the impact that COVID and isolation has had on your mental health. You might be a little bit surprised, but the other thing we're going to be talking about, of course, is how you can help yourself. Also coming up a little later on is going to be someone we had on as a guest back in April on episode 17, the Good Neighbor Project. They started initially out in Mississauga and Brampton, but now have more than 6,000 volunteers. Well, they are marking their 100th day today, and I was honored that they asked me to help them celebrate. So we're going to be talking to them, and they have a message for you coming up in a little while here on Kevin's Isolators. But in the meantime, let us get to what you are grateful for today. And this is one way you can help with your mental health, is to be positive as much as you can and try and look for what you are grateful for in a day. I'm grateful my toe isn't hurting as much today. Now, don't get me wrong. It's still hurting, just not as much. I'm thankful that we were able to pick up a new portable air conditioner as one of ours died. Yes. Definitely need that. A good fan. We've got, is there another heat warning in effect, I think, or something like that? Yeah. Grateful the rain finally slowed down up here. 4 inches of rain since Monday. Boy, Mike Robin, of course, talking to us from Cochrane. Getting a lot of rain up there. And I'm grateful for my personal service worker who accompanied me on my walk today. Yeah, all the PSWs out there. Grateful for a me day tomorrow. Cindy, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Hope you're going to sleep in, then get up, have breakfast, then go back and have a nap. Grateful that I don't have to walk tomorrow. And I'm grateful my appointment at the hospital went fast. I'm glad, because you probably had all sorts of visions, Rose, that you were going to get in the hospital, have to wait for hours these days, right? I'm grateful for a cut and color today. Yes, I've got to get a cut. Maybe a color, maybe a little blue, maybe a little red. Okay, so I'm grateful for being grateful. Okay, I'll take that. I want to move on now to our guest, and this is interesting. And this little piece of submicroscopic bacteria known as COVID-19 has had an impact on our physical health, but the impact on our mental health may be troubling, according to a new study that was just released this morning. And it paints a picture of people having a lot of difficulty coping, especially those who are most vulnerable. And my guest is Margaret Eaton. She is the CEO of the Canadian Association of Mental Health. And you've been on before, Margaret, so you know the drill. How are you today?
I'm very well, thanks. Great to see you again, Kevin.
Nice to see you. I'm sure that CAMH has been an extremely busy place.
Actually, it's Canadian Mental Health
Canadian
Association.
Sorry.
That's okay. CAMH is
the Canadian Addiction and
Center for Addiction Mental Health.
There it is.
Yeah, just
I'm
to
sorry.
be clear.
So
it happens all the time.
Yeah, too many letters.
Too many letters with C's and E's in them. Yeah.
So the CMHA has been very busy.
We've been very busy. I think the last time I spoke with you was in April, and we had a meeting last week with our division CEOs, all the provinces and territories, and I said, has the phone slowed down? Are you getting fewer phone calls, or, are things starting to get easier? And they actually said the phone calls had increased.
Really?
So as we imagined, it wasn't. It wasn't necessarily going to stop just because the physical worries have slowed down somewhat. But across the country, people are still feeling anxious. They're now anxious about going back to work and about what that looks like. So there are still signs that people are struggling, and this research that we're going to talk about just reinforces that.
It reinforces it, and it really underlines and perhaps proves that what experts have actually been saying since the beginning of isolation, that we are going to see a major influx of mental health problems because of isolation, and this only proves their point.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's isolation, it's financial worries for many people who have lost work. But what we really wanted to look at with this study is there were many surveys that would say things like 50% of Canadians have experienced a decline in their mental health. But we wanted to know who is most affected, who is most vulnerable. And as you can imagine, it is people living in poverty. It's people with who have already had mental illness or mental health challenges, and they've found that has been exacerbated during this time. And it's also Indigenous people, people with disabilities, and people who identify as LGBTQ. So if you already had a complicating situation coming into this, it was going to be made worse by COVID-19.
Essentially, a lot of people who have been disenfranchised or feel that, they were already suffering their own form of isolation, and now we're throwing another isolation on top of someone who already feels like society has forgotten all about them. So it's not. Now, I'm going to make my apologies now because I had Cam H on the brain, so a lot of the graphics you're going to see will say Cam H on them, but I'll keep repeating. It's the Canadian Mental Health Association, CMHA. It's a good thing because I almost called it Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation as well, CMHC.
Yes, that could be us as well. Yeah.
Okay, let's get to the survey. It was done of about 3,000 people were questioned and participated in the survey, and it was primarily done by the University of British Columbia. And so let's take a look at, first of all, one of the first things that sort of stood out for me, and that is just talking about the mental health effects. My mental health has declined 38%. Now, is this 38% of the general population said their mental health has declined, or 38% of those who already had pre-existing mental health condition?
This is the general population.
Really?
And this is a little bit lower than that previous survey I mentioned that I believe Deloitte did that showed 50% of Canadians had mental health decline. So this survey was May 14th to 29th, and it's showing that it's 38%. So that actually is a little bit better than the beginning of April, say.
Wow. See, I thought it was, when I looked at it, because some of the study and some of the things we're going to talk about question directly to people who have already had or are living with some mental health conditions. But to say that's the general population, that more than a third of people say that their mental health has declined.
Yeah. And as I say, that's a little bit better than the 50% before. And I can't, when I try to think what's different between beginning of April and middle of May, I think the CERB program, that $2,000 a month, when we heard that people were going to be getting that, a lot of mental health professionals breathed a big sigh of relief, knowing that that is going to make life so much easier and reduce mental health issues, that anxiety that leads to depression, and then that really exacerbates other forms of mental illness. So I think people got a little bit of financial relief by May, and that might explain why that number is a little bit better than some earlier numbers we saw.
Yeah. Do you know what's making me anxious, Margaret, is that weeks ago, we just had the impression it was going to be isolation, and then it would be over. We had
Yeah.
that impression. It was going to be
Yeah.
2, maybe 3 months if it was bad. And, excuse me. So now here we are 3 months later, and yes, isolation is kind of winding down, but it's not. We're being told, no, you're not going back to your normal life, and it's still going to be tough looking for a job if you don't have one, and it's still going to be no going to sporting events or recreation, and you still have to be careful with gatherings. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, I think it's all those things, and it's the uncertainty too, and not knowing when things might go back. And then there's also that fear of the second wave that I think is on people's minds. So it makes us cautious with each other, which is also unfortunate.
And then we're hearing the bickering back and forth between those who are pro-mask and anti-mask, those who feel that this is licked and it's not licked, and the misinformation out there, and the stubbornness. And so now we're actually arguing amongst ourselves sometimes against science and fact.
Yeah, yeah, that is so true. I think especially in the U.S. we've seen that debate where wearing a mask has become politicized.
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen that so much here in Canada. There seems to be more of a recognition of the need to wear masks, but still I'm surprised when I see people that don't have masks on.
There's a little bit of it here in Canada. There is, sadly.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to the another result of the survey. Talk about being anxious. And the question, I feel anxious and worried, and 46% of people said yeah.
Yeah, that's a high number. And that is related to all the things we were talking about, fears about money, jobs, economic future, concerns about getting ill or your family or your parents becoming ill. Even children's mental health has declined, which is another part of our survey as well. So a lot of people are feeling this anxiety around this time, and it's so generalized. If you think about other pandemics like SARS or H1N1, it just didn't affect everybody. But these general population results are quite concerning.
It's not just children, right? Children, the anxiety there as well, but it's parents of children. Yeah. So there has been a significant increase in mental health problems reported by parents who have kids under 18.
Yeah, so you imagine this is such a stressed group of people with having to maybe work plus take care of kids, homeschool, and dealing with kids' anxiety is really hard too. So yes, we actually saw that 1 out of 10 parents of children under 18 have had some suicidal thoughts. So these are very concerning numbers.
We know that the incidents of suicide, sadly, were on the increase before isolation. Over the last couple of years, we've seen a dramatic increase in suicides, especially among the young. So the study deals a lot with that and asks people about this. So let's take a look at one of the results here. I have had suicidal thoughts, 6%. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. That's still a lot. However, if we go to the next page now, and we talk about those who had suicidal thoughts, that's the general population. Excuse me. However, those who were already struggling with mental health issues, triple that number have had suicidal thoughts. Those with a disability, low income, the indigenous population, the numbers skyrocket in the suicidal thoughts.
Yeah, and in a normal year, the general population with suicidal thoughts would be about 2.5%. So this is more than double. And we know that Crisis Services Canada has had many more phone calls and have had to perform many more active rescues, which is their term for people who are very close to serious self-harm, and they've had to bring them back. So it's been a time of real concern for those first responders who are on the phone talking to those people with suicidal thoughts. And then, of course, the Indigenous community. I mean, this is a community that has historically had tremendously high rates of youth suicide in particular. It's practically a national emergency just looking at Indigenous suicide, and those numbers are up. And we know that Indigenous communities don't get the same level of health care, let alone mental health care, that the rest of the population does.
Yeah,
So
I mean, there are
this is a concern.
there are indigenous communities here that don't even get proper drinking water and healthy
Yeah.
drinking water. So, what chance do they have when it comes to mental health? And
Exactly.
and it's definitely something that we have to address. Okay, let's talk about men versus women now. And if we take a look at the numbers here, there is a contrast between men and women, where women definitely seem to be reporting more of a mental health decline than men. Now, is that they're willing to admit it? Or it's because maybe they bear the brunt, perhaps, of what happens in the home quite often, as far as making sure everything is running fine?
Yeah, I'd say it's both of those things, Kevin, as well as the fact that women typically report poorer mental health than men. So this result is not too surprising. But I think this is a different sort of economic loss as well, it seems, where women are much more affected by job loss than men have been. So women are the ones in retail, for example, food service. This pandemic has definitely affected women's jobs. So you can see that impact on those women.
And folks, we're not being sexist here, okay? The numbers bear out the fact that definitely there is still a glass ceiling in place, and that sadly, in this society, women quite often will have the lower paying jobs. And when it comes to work in the home, women tend to still do the bulk of the work in the home. And I know there's exceptions, and there's more and more exceptions, thank goodness. But I just want you to, we're just talking about realistic numbers right now and stats.
Exactly.
Okay, we've got the good and we've got the bad with family time. Let's start with the bad. Okay, get that out of the way with. I always like the bad news first. So more time together has resulted in more conflicts with kids. 23% of respondents said that. More yelling and shouting. Disciplining kids more, both at 17%. Worried about safety, and I'm talking about domestic and mental abuse and mental health abuse. Using harsh words more. I thought that would be higher, actually. Only 11% are saying that. And so, but generally, that conflict has definitely increased and been exacerbated. And what are we hearing about those who are already living in a home where abuse was prevalent?
Yes, we do know that many shelters for women and children have remained open during the pandemic, and they have been over full as a result of the pandemic. And there was some additional funding from the federal government, in fact, for shelters because the situation was so dire. And, you know, this is the effect of living in close quarters, children not being able to go to school, people in poverty or living in just living too close to each other and having that create that anxiety and stress that can often then result in violence, unfortunately. And as we see harsh words, we're not made to stay indoors all day. And it's really just exacerbating situations that already existed.
And I want to let people know that if you are living in an abusive relationship, you don't have to. And this is not your fault. And the numbers you see on the screen that we have pretty well had on the bottom of our screen for most of our 100 episodes, there are methods that these services use so that you can remain safe, so that they will tell you how to cover your tracks on a computer, so to speak, or they won't phone you directly, or they'll message you as a friend. There are ways of getting around that no one is going to be able to find out that you're reaching out for help, and they will come get you in some cases to get you out of there safely. So don't just accept it. That's got to be a tough thing too, is sometimes you think you have no alternative, and we throw suicide in there as well. You feel there's no other way out.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But there really are people standing by right now. You've put up the phone number for Crisis Services Canada. There are people waiting to talk to you and to help you. The Canadian Association for Mental Health, now you've got me doing
Sorry.
it. Canadian Mental Health Association. Oh my God. CMHA in Toronto and across the province, across the country. There are phone lines and people that can direct you to the best supports. So yes, don't suffer in silence, please.
Yeah. Oh my, I can only imagine. Now, let's get to the positive, because there are some positive numbers that came out of this study. More time together has resulted in more quality time with the kids. 66% reported that. Half of those questioned felt more close to their kids and to their family. Showing more love and affection during this time, and saying kids are showing resilience, and showing a little surprise at just how resilient kids are. So, I mean, there is some positive as well. And I think in a lot of cases, too, that these are people who are looking at things a little more positively and trying to keep a good thought in their days.
Yeah, I think that's true. We've all, started making gratitude journals and things like that. Like we are looking for the bright side, which I think is very much a human response to also say, well, just as you did at the top of the show, what are we grateful for? And then trying to encourage children that way too. It's so important to keep those positive messages going for kids, that your life isn't always going to be like this, because children don't know, right? That, that this isn't the new normal. It will get better. You will go back to school.
What was the thing that shocked you the most about this study, Margaret?
I guess I would say it's this information about parents and kids that you've drawn attention to. We hadn't really looked at those numbers before. I don't think there are any other studies yet that have looked at that response. And it is such an unusual situation that everybody is all crowded into one space at the same time. And I guess I hadn't realized that it was just this level of conflict, and that would create suicidal feelings among parents. And one of the stats that we didn't show was that parents are concerned about feeding their children. 23% are saying they're worried that they don't have enough food to feed their families. So we see the economic connection to people's anxiety here. So it is just really the perfect storm for families. Everybody's at home. Maybe the parents aren't working or worried about putting food on the table, and they're trying to homeschool. And do they even have the equipment to homeschool or an internet connection? It's just a lot. It's a lot.
So we know the problem. There have been some positive steps taken, especially at Queen's Park, where we're seeing a little bit more attention paid to mental health, and we're seeing them pay for a number of programs that they didn't before when it concerns mental health. Have we done enough for the pace of change? What more do we need to do?
Yeah, well, every year 1.6 million Canadians experience a mental health issue but do not seek help. And, there's lots of reasons for that. But, one of the biggest is that we just are not funding appropriate supports. There is no mental health care system really in Canada. And so along with stigma, even if you decide I'm going to get some help, sometimes it can be very hard to find that help. And oftentimes you have to be able to afford to find that help. So mental health hasn't been funded in the same way that physical health has. And so there have been some steps taken, as you say. The federal government put in quite an increase in funding that was to be downloaded then to the provinces, but we're not sure whether the provinces are actually spending that money on mental health or whether that's meant new money for mental health. So there's lots of things that governments could do. There's some wonderful models in other countries where they're particularly looking at if you just address depression and anxiety, which are the most prevalent of mental health concerns amongst Canadians, you could set up community care centers providing cognitive behavioral therapy training, which is what they do in the UK, and they're open to every citizen. And there are local centers that you can just walk into, get a test, and then get support. So we don't have these kinds of across the country, simple, easy, low stigma ways for people to seek help, and that's really a shame.
Yeah, and if I broke my leg, boy, you wouldn't want to hear me if I broke my leg, honestly, because something going on about my toe. But
Right.
if I broke my leg, I'd know exactly what to do. So
Yeah.
if I was somewhere on the street and it happened, I'd call 911. If I was home, I would go to an emergency room. I would call my doctor. I would call telehealth. We don't know what to do. First of all, we need to recognize that we need help.
Right?
But what do you do once
Yeah.
you realize you need help? So, Margaret, answer that question. What should you do if you can at least say to yourself, I think I need some help?
Right. Well, one of the first steps is, as you say, recognizing that you need some help. And so, we really encourage people to go to our Canadian Mental Health Association website, find
That is
a
the correct term,
CMHA.
Margaret. Very good. Very good for you.
Find a CMHA near you and give them a call. So a lot of the services that we were providing as walk-in services or programs that were only available in person are now they've become virtual programs. So we've got supports that are available. And you'll find programs in Ontario like Bounce Back. And Bounce Back is a virtual 3-month program in cognitive behavioral therapy. It is oversubscribed right now. A friend of mine signed up, and then it's been a couple of weeks, and there is so much demand right now that there just isn't enough to go around. But I urge you to get on the list. And that program has remarkable success. 85% of the people that participate say that they have made a long-term change in their mental health after taking that program. So there are some supports out there. As I say, there aren't enough. But I think it's really important to reach out and talk to someone and get some advice on where supports are and what you might do next. And I guess the other thing is Wellness Together, which is a program that the federal government has set up in response to COVID-19, which also has a tremendous set of online tools, videos, resources, and that also will get you a phone number that you can call to talk to someone.
And I know we've had them on this program before. Now it's privately owned. It's partially funded by Manulife, but it's called Mind Beacon and mindbeacon.com.
Yes.
And primarily, they were providing services to subscribers of theirs, health insurance, group insurance, things like that. But lately, they have now been offering digital programs for mental health because now it's covered by the Ontario government.
Yes. So there's been a big investment in some of these other services just to try to expand and build on what is already there that works. Mind Beacon is terrific. Even some corporations like Loblaws Shoppers Drug Mart has also put some free resources online. So there are other things that you can find that will give you some temporary relief, but we really do encourage you to reach out. Even, a lot of Canadians go to their doctor as the first stop. And doctors can also refer people to other kinds of programs, especially cognitive behavioral therapy programs. And there may be a drug solution that's useful as well. So a doctor is also a place to go if you have one.
And, Yeah, and I've said it many times before on this program. You are your own mental health advocate. No one is going to come over and help you unless you, first of all, ask for some help. You have to make that first step, recognize the problem, and then you've got to reach out. And if someone won't listen to you, you yell louder. So it used to be you would go to your family doctor, and quite often it was just like it was not taken as seriously. That was really not that long ago. But now, so many doctors are so on board with mental health programs. So you're right, going to your doctor is an incredibly good first step if you're lucky to have one. But go to a walk-in clinic.
Go to a clinic. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And Telehealth Ontario. I know they're busy, but aren't you worth it?
Yeah, so true.
Margaret, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. And I remind people, please go and check out the website for the Canadian Mental Health Association, cmha.ca. They will not give you a mortgage, I'm sorry, but there's lots of resources on there as well. What's on the website? Tell people a little bit what's on the website.
Yeah, well, what you'll find is that's our national website. So you'll find connections to the CMHA in your local community. And then when you go to the CMHA in your community, you'll see all their programs and services. Some of them are offering housing help. Some of them offer employment help. There are group therapy programs. There's access to online tools. There's a phone number, a crisis number, as well as the local phone number to call and talk to someone to find out what might be best for you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you again so much for this, Margaret. I know that you're going to be, you and everybody there are going to be busy digesting this information, see what direction you can offer to government and other healthcare providers. And thank you for doing what you do.
Well, thank you very much, Kevin, and thank you for what you do. I understand you're coming up to your 100th show.
100th show on Sunday.
Yeah, so congratulations, and thank you for the emphasis that you place on mental health and for being a mental health champion.
All right, thank you, Margaret. Anytime we talk about mental health, it just surprises me how it's not getting any better. It is still in its infancy as far as trying to find the proper help. But I really, really want to advise you to reach out. There's so many resources online to begin with, but don't be satisfied with that. Reach out. Okay, now I want to move on in the program and talk about a guest that we had on, or a group we had on here at the end of April. At that point, they had like 2,000 people, which was still... Oh, hold on. Oh, okay, sorry about that. They had about 2,000 people. They now have, the Good Neighbor Project, more than 6,000 volunteers, completed more than 2,500 deliveries to people who speak more than 30 different languages, in 25 GTA municipalities. Basically, when someone needs something, they call on the Good Neighbor Project to deliver, and they do deliver. So it can be shut-ins, it can be even moms and dads who cannot get to the store, seniors, disabled, anything like that, who just need someone, and they are angels. They are angels. Well, they mark their 100th day of service today. And I'm not kidding when I said it was a great honor when I was called by them to help them mark that day today. And they have a special message for you. Had a bit of a Zoom meeting with them. Well, hi, everybody. How are you?
Good. How's it going? Yeah.
Oh, don't answer at once.
Okay, that's fine.
So let's start with Maduba, seeing as she seems to be the big cheese. Tell me about 100 days.
100 days. It feels like a lifetime, but it's been 100 days since this project's kind of come together, that this community's been built, and that we've been going strong for 100 days, and just supporting the most vulnerable in the community. And we've had so many incredible people come together to do that. So, yeah.
Anybody else want to sort of give their thoughts on 100 days?
I think it's incredible to see how it's evolved, right? So when you look at the starting, where we're such a small group of individuals really supporting the community and getting it up and running, to where it's grown, and you have all these volunteers in different capacities, lending their different strengths to this group. It's really made it a wholesome kind of community feel, and really embodies, what the Good Neighbor Project is about, or what we envisioned it being.
Yeah, like 100 days of showing what community actually looks like. Like, when things doesn't go the way we wanted it to go, when we hit with a pandemic, when we hit with like lockdowns, this is what like community stands for. This is what 100 days, I believe, it's all about. Like, showing our community in large, showing the world, like, what Canadians, what community looks like when we need each other.
I think it's very nice, though, that you have invited someone from the International Space Station to be a part of your group as well.
So, Kevin, in case you didn't know, actually, Tariq's the one who came up with the idea for the entire project. And I don't know, Tariq, maybe you want to tell us a little bit about that story, because it gives so much context to why we started doing what we started doing 100 days ago.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it was a couple of days before the lockdown started. I was out with my family doing some shopping, and there was a news already out there that they're going to be a lockdown. So everybody was out there in grocery stores grabbing all those toilet paper and hand sanitizers and gloves and food and stuff like that. And that's when we noticed that there were a few seniors in the store who were struggling to go about, like, do their grocery shop, like, just because it was a chaotic scene. People were just jumping on each other, and they were literally struggling. Like, I saw one a senior who was in the aisle for almost like 45 minutes just to grab some of the necessities. And that's when we came home, and my daughter was asking, like, actually we helped the senior. We helped the senior from the checkout because they were struggling. There was a huge line. We were standing in line for an hour or so. We helped a senior check out, and then my daughter asked me, like, like, what can we do? Like, we should help some of the seniors that we know down the street from our house. And then we reach out to them, and we said, like, hey, we are here. If you need us, like, please let us know. This is my number. Call me, and then we are more than welcome to go do your shopping for you. And then that's when I spoke with a few of the people here in this group, some of the other friends, and then we said, like, how about we just form a little group, and see who, when we have seniors who are reaching out to us, we can go and help them out. This was just, again, as the name says, within our neighborhood. But then, thanks to, like, all these incredible people who are here on this call, and people like Kevin, other media folks who have helped us reach out to other people, and then within 24 hours, we had 500 people on that Facebook group that we created. So initially, it was an idea to just create something within our small circle, but then in 24 hours, we have 500 people, and now almost 6,000 people in 100 days. So that's the story behind it.
I think you just made a reveal there. You revealed something, that it was your daughter that came up with this idea.
Oh, yeah. She was the one who would start asking these questions, yeah.
His daughter is 7 years old, I think.
Yeah, she's 7, yeah.
He's very community-minded.
I love that. I love that. We're learning from a 7-year-old. And that's not to take anything away from you, Tariq, from what you did. However, to have such a young person think, I need to do something, speaks volumes. And it speaks volumes for your parenting as well.
Thank you. Yeah.
Are you a better person, do you think? Let's ask around. Who hasn't had an answer yet? Are you a better person for 100 days?
A better person, like, after 100 days after?
Yeah.
I think the nice thing about being with this community of, like, volunteers is, like, I think each of us kind of, like, help motivate each other. So I think it definitely, like, as volunteers, it can sometimes be draining as well, like, constantly putting in the time. But being within a team where, people have such great ideas, you kind of, like, get great motivation within the team as well. So I think just it's like an ongoing, like, strength building process, like, within the team, which is nice to have, which is why I'm thankful to be part of such a great team with such great energy. Because if I'm ever feeling like, okay, maybe I can't do enough this week, but then I get the inspiration from everyone else around me to keep going.
Is it an accurate statement to say you guys have changed lives? And I'm not just talking about yours and people who work with the project itself, but those people who you delivered things to and met. I will edit out the silence. Don't worry.
I think it's like roll calling, right? It's like someone I can see someone's mouth open, and it's like, oh, do you want to talk? I won't talk. You talk. Like,
You know what?
Ruhi, do you guys want to take this because you actually hear feedback directly?
Well, hold on. I'm going to set some ground rules here. One of the ground rules is there is no politeness here. I want everybody not to let everybody else talk. You speak up. I know it's tougher with Zoom. So what? Tell me about this. Somebody answer it.
So I don't know if we change lives. I mean, that's a very big terminology, I guess, like changing someone's life. So I don't know if I would want to say that, but we definitely helped out people when they needed us. Like, I mean, we have so many stories, tons of stories. Like, and I have mentioned this few times. I remember the very first call that I took, actually the second call that I took on the hotline was someone who was in her early 90s. And the very first thing she did was she started crying. And she was like, I didn't know that this phone existed, this number existed. Like, are you really going to help me out? I live by myself and I have no one to go. And when I heard about this lockdown, I have absolutely no idea who I'm going to go and ask for help. Like, how I'm going to go about and bring my necessities, my groceries, my medicine. And I'm glad. So you're going to come and do that for me. And I was like, yes, we'll definitely find someone who can come down and help. So did we change anyone's life? I'm not sure, but did we change anyone who needed help during the time that we all went through? Yes, we did. So, and we have so many stories like that.
Okay, I'm gonna argue with you there. You did change a life, and I think you've changed probably more than you give yourselves credit for, because what you did was you gave somebody something that is so hard to come by these days, and that is hope. And when you abandon hope, you abandon that positivity, you abandon that things are good. But if you can convince someone, wait, there's still someone out there who's willing to help me for nothing, I feel better about this. Anybody's comments? Anybody's thoughts?
We've had.
I think it has that kind of effect too, where they pay it forward as well, right? Like I always find that when you help someone or you do someone or do something to just brighten someone's day, it really creates that positive effect that then carries on to something else or another interaction that they have. So, and I think for a lot of these individuals, kind of like Tariq was saying with our senior population who don't have support, like for a lot of those individuals, they were really, stranded and didn't know, like, how am I going to get those things? And these are, you're talking about food and you're talking about medication. So it was, for a lot of those individuals, they were frozen. So it did help kind of provide that support and that service, and knowing that, you do have these community people who are still just generally, we want to help out. That's all we want to do. And it's not for accolades or any other point of that. This is what the human race needs to do to support each other. And then, like I said, it does have that paying forward kind of effect, I think. So.
Yeah, to build off of that, Cynthia, I actually remember there was a volunteer who completed a delivery for a requester in Toronto, but her parents lived all the way in Niagara Falls and she couldn't get down to help them and they didn't have anybody. So she messaged me asking if we could get a volunteer out there. And we, at the time, didn't actually even expand to Niagara Falls. We were pretty limited around the GTA area, but, we posted it in our group and then we were able to find someone in Niagara Falls. So here she was in Toronto helping someone, close to her, and then in Niagara Falls, someone helped out her parents. So there was definitely this like network of people just coming together, one person helping in the communities that they're close to, and then the same people like paying it forward in another community.
Even on the phones, like you would hear people, at least a couple of people that I spoke to, the requesters would be like, I'm so grateful, because of this reason, I can't go out and do this myself. But, thanks to you guys, you've given me the motivation to see that I can do things just from my home as well. And I can help in other ways. So I'm going to do that. So I think it's definitely spreading that, message of positivity. And like you said, hope. And that's just so important at a time like this.
Okay, I want to hear some of your favorite stories. You've already sort of alluded to a couple of them, and I'm going to open this up to two we haven't heard from, two we haven't heard from yet. Farwa, do you have a favorite story?
Favorite story? Specifically, not really, but what I would love to say is the fact that our volunteers go out of their way to do what they can to help all our requesters, it just astonishes me. Sometimes they're so eager about it too. Like no matter how many deliveries you give them or no matter how many requests you ask them to take, they're always ready to take them on. And that, I think that's my favorite story. Not
Okay,
specifically
okay,
for
okay. I'm gonna put you on the spot then.
Okay.
I want you to tell me, expand on that a bit, but pick a story.
Pick a story. Okay, so we had a request from a food bank where they needed a client to, so basically the delivery needed to be done every single day or at least 4 days a week. And we had one volunteer who was ready to do it. They did it 4 days a week for about 3 weeks. So that takes dedication. And
what is that volunteer's name?
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it.
Just Maduba, Maduba, and I defer to you, and perhaps to Tariq. Let's just use some first names because these people need to be recognized.
Yeah.
So can you give me the first name of the volunteer? Is that okay, Maduba?
First name should be fine. Farwa, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so give me the first name, Farwa.
Peter.
Pardon?
Peter.
Well, you know what? This is above and beyond. I think that's absolutely incredible, and Peter deserves that recognition and to be named by name.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe you can mention about Cody.
Yeah, so I was thinking. So Cody is definitely one of our star volunteers. He has gone above and beyond, and I think at this point has almost completed 100 deliveries. He's so fast to pick up a delivery, and once we post even urgent requests, he's ready to comment, and he's completed, I think, like some days he'll do 5 deliveries, and that kind of takes up his entire day, with like waiting in line, picking up groceries, dropping things off. So he's definitely up there. But the other story that I was thinking of was actually someone who paid close to $900 for a delivery out of his own pocket with so much faith that he will be reimbursed after. But that takes a lot. It's very, very selfless, and we do not ask our volunteers to do anything like that. But he didn't even notify us that he did that, and of course he was reimbursed. But to put yourself out there, for me, that stood out a lot.
Yeah. His name is Alex.
Alex. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow. That takes a lot of faith and a lot of trust and a real leap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy cow. All right, Monica.
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, Mayanne, I want to talk about Mayanne. She's just so wonderful. Like one of the stories that really stood out to me is that she actually brought a cake for a requester's birthday while she was delivering to her, which was the sweetest thing that I've ever seen, right? And her daughter actually wrote her a card, and it's just to see that her daughter is seeing this happening, right? And so she's also learning. So as she grows up, she's also going to contribute, right? And she's also going to see that how else can we help out. And it's just so wonderful to see I wouldn't have thought of that. I don't even know how she found out her birthday, but it must have come up in a conversation. But for her to think maybe I should bring a cake for her, that's just something that a lot of people don't even think about. That really made the requester's day, and that story just stands out to me. So it's just, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Everybody's just so good.
Tariq, your turn.
Oh, okay. I want to thank Zawar. He's a friend, and he also lives down the street from the house, and he was part of the idea when we were discussing it. And he's a father of 3 kids, and I know he has a busy schedule. But when we needed someone to go out and do the shopping, and this is when way beginning when we didn't have 6,000 volunteers, and then he took a break from his work and he went down and he helped out a senior, did the shopping again with his own money, and then helped out. So I want to thank Zawar for his contribution.
Fantastic. All right, we're going. I'm sort of going. Sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. I just wanted to add in that our volunteers, some of them do spend many hours in line, getting the things that needed. They go through for example, sometimes they're not able to find certain items that the requesters tell them, right? And they have to find out a substitute for it, and go they spend hours on it, right? Not just one requester, like, they might be doing like 4 requests, like whatever it is. They spend so many hours doing it, right? Even food bank requests, like, standing for a food truck to come by, for like 2 hours, because that's what it is. Like, you have to sign yourself up so that it's like a first come, first serve basis. So you have to wait that long in order to get the items. So 2 hours, in the heat, like we're talking about summer where like we experience heat, right? And they're just like waiting to get things. It's just so amazing, like how much like they were able to do just because they want to help out.
Yeah.
Well, Monica, you're saying you experience heat in the summer, but let's not forget, this started in the winter. And I remember when I first met Maduba, it was freezing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it doesn't matter the weather, right? It's just they're like willing to go above and beyond, regardless of what the circumstances are, regardless of the weather. Like, no matter what, like even if they don't have a car, they're willing to make that walk. They're willing to go by a bicycle. Like, we've had great stories where like one person, what was his name? I forgot. Can someone help me out? He traveled. Yeah, yes, Nikolai. He traveled from like Toronto to like North York on a bicycle, and it's like it's just, to me, it's just like mind-boggling. Like, what? Right?
And then they forgot an item, or the requester missed an item, and he went back the one time.
Yeah.
Out of pocket, salt, not a problem.
It's like, what? So it's amazing. It's amazing. Truly, I just have nothing but good things to say. Yeah.
And it's also important to recognize that because a lot of our requesters are seniors, they have like very specific requests about the items that they like. So it takes a lot of like, detail-oriented volunteers to actually make sure they're getting exactly what they're needing, and then sometimes like returning things and things like that.
Yeah, I guess anybody who's ever shopped for their parents or grandparents know exactly how. Well, you know what? And make sure there's a blue check mark on the label, and if that blue check mark isn't there, I will take the green one. However, it only get 2, not 3. Yeah. So I can understand that totally. Maduba, what's your favorite story?
So I do want to highlight a volunteer. Her name is Tina, and so when someone needs support, they call into our hotline. But Tina is actually one of those volunteers where sometimes if a requester doesn't call into the hotline and they call her directly, like there's one requester that almost on a daily basis for the smallest things, but she lives in like I think North York area, but she's traveling to Mississauga, she's traveling to Scarborough to pick up small items that maybe one wouldn't consider an essential grocery. But it made the requester very happy to have access to these things. And Tina actually, before the pandemic even started, she's one of our volunteers that have done an incredible number of deliveries, but she actually has an injury. And so despite all of that, like she's been going and doing all these grocery loads, and anytime she's been contacted outside of the hotline itself, Tina's always done a request. She's always supported requesters. And for me, that is just so inspiring that putting your physical and your own personal barriers or concerns aside, you're still going out of your way to do whatever you can to help others. That's just so inspiring. People do transcend all sorts of barriers and, to do what they can in times of need. And that's, for me, the story.
Okay, Ruhi, we heard your favorite story. So I'm going to move to Oneza. Tell me your favorite story, and when you mention the name, you know what I love is whenever any of you mention a name, Cody, Peter, whatever, all of you go like this. You're all like, oh yes. All right, so Oneza, begin by mentioning a name, and I want to see the reaction of everyone.
Okay, so actually this name people might not recognize, but I want to mention Gins. Gins is a social worker, and he's called on behalf of requesters that need our support but didn't feel comfortable, didn't feel confident enough, or had that barrier to actually call the hotline. So we have these amazing people, whether it's social workers or nurses, that are calling out on behalf of people that they know that need our support but just weren't able to take that step, and they take that step for them. So we have people out there that know of people in need and then know of our service, and they help in bringing those two together. And I just think that's just such a beautiful thing. It's just the fact that they're going out of their scope probably of what they're doing with that particular person, and they're going above and beyond, and working on helping these people get connected to services like ours. And we kind of rely on that too, right? A lot of our requesters, like we've mentioned, are seniors and might not be on the internet or have Facebook or see some of the other ways that we've been engaging volunteers. So we rely on people like that and word of mouth for us to be able to connect with the people that really need our help. So GINT stands out to me.
Okay. Wafa.
So I was gonna mention a volunteer who's also done a lot of deliveries. His name is Simon, and he's just one of those
again, you just see everybody going, Simon, yes, okay.
Yeah, it's just it's nice having volunteers that you can because we're all connecting online, and so it's so great to then eventually form like a really great bond of trust. Like, okay, I'm gonna assign this to Simon, and I know he's gonna do a wonderful job connecting with the senior and getting everything done. So it kind of takes a lot of the stress of the request off of us. We could rely on these volunteers because they're so amazing, and the fact that they will sign up to do it's a continuing story, to do multiple deliveries, and they don't hesitate to sign up. They'll be one of the first to be oh, I'll do this, which I just think just shows that they're just really willing to just sacrifice their time, which is not easy to do. So just even that little thing where I'll be the first one, I'm not going to wait for anyone else to say if they can do it, I'll just do it. So that's really great to see. So Simon definitely stood out because he's just an amazing volunteer. He works so well with all of our requesters that call in, and he's always able to get it done so quickly as well. So he's also a really wonderful volunteer.
Sorry, one more thing to add, just along the lines of the willingness to step up. I'd also like to mention Tajinder. He was one of the people that right at the yeah, he would just sign up for everything. We would post it, and within 30 seconds, there he is commenting every single time. So that to me is also really, really amazing.
I think what's so funny about all of that is that people have actually messaged us being upset at why they weren't chosen to do the delivery. So people comment, oh, why didn't you pick me? Or what's your process for picking volunteers and things like that. It's so heartwarming to even get that people being upset about something like that.
Wow. Okay, Cynthia.
Yeah, and it's funny. I hate being last because all the ones I'm thinking about, all the people have been mentioned. It's funny too. You establish a bit of a rapport with some of these volunteers. And Alex, I know early on, was doing a lot of requests that he'd pick up. He'd message me on the side saying, I've noticed that you don't have someone. I can do it. So he's doing really well, and his family and kids and all that.
Okay, so Cynthia. Okay, I'm going to give you an assignment then. because obviously we've chosen a lot of names. I think Oneza came up with a name maybe that was not as familiar, but you all chose names and everybody said yes, yes, yes. Is there anyone you can think of, that quiet person who is always in the background, doesn't want any recognition, but just goes above and beyond? And if you can, I'm sure someone else can, but I'm gonna ask you, is there someone who tries to, or seems to go unnoticed, but it goes above and beyond?
It's a lot of the individuals that we've had, and I'm trying to, and I'm bad too. I've actually been off the hotline for the last little bit. Just some other things came up, so I'm not as familiar with some of the names. So I'm sure someone else can probably think of.
Okay, we'll do that. So who were you going to think of then?
So the two stories that I had that I was going to mention, I'm gapping on the person's name, but I'm thinking about one of our elderly individuals recently suffered 2 strokes, is homebound, typically has a care worker come and do a month's worth of shopping for him. And it's a significant, kind of like Tariq was saying earlier, it's a significant bill. And this one lady volunteered, not a problem, stood in line out of Walmart early on for 2.5 hours to get this month's worth of groceries. And again, the very list of all these things, and if they don't have this, have that, was incredibly patient with this individual, and then even assisting to get it to their door because physically they weren't able to do that, right? And just the compassion that individual had. And then the other person I was thinking about is Mary Beth. Mary Beth,
Gosh.
a lot of our requests, but then actually shifted to become a hotline volunteer. So then she started to be on the phones as well, which is a beautiful kind of way where you're learning the whole system and being part of the whole development. So you experience it from the delivery point of view, and then you can also experience it from talking to the individuals on the phone and having that enriched kind of approach to it too. So it's nice to see the development of the team members and all our volunteers and how they've really taken on the roles and enriched our program as it is.
You use the hashtag here for you. What does that mean exactly?
Well, it means that, we are here for you. Exactly what it says. We are here for you when you need us. We are here for you during this time that we all are going through with. We are here for you when you need us most. And that's exactly what it is. We want it to be very simple. We want it to be very straightforward so that everyone understands what this project is all about.
It's our commitment to the communities that we're supporting.
Yeah, it's our promise for the type, a lot of people don't realize that aside from doing just deliveries for individual requesters, we actually support ongoingly food banks and their clients. We support different community health centers. We support group living homes as well. And so it's our promise to everyone that as long as the Good Neighbor Project and this community that we've built is around, that we are going to be here for you in whatever capacity we can be. And so that's why it's our hashtag that we use for a lot of our posts, is just reiterating and reaffirming our commitment. Just to everyone, during this pandemic and maybe beyond, we're going to do our best to be the good neighbors that we can be.
All right, and you have now a message. It's Wafa that's going to start?
Farwa.
Farwa. Okay, Farwa, you go ahead.
Through our 100-day journey, we at the Good Neighbor Project are thankful for our good neighbors in the community.
For collaboration and our communities across Ontario coming together.
For all of our community partners, food banks, and community health centers.
Thank you for the elderly, a person with disability, single parents, someone in self-isolation, and the pregnant woman.
For our network of over 6,000 volunteers without whom none of this would have been possible.
For our dedicated team of volunteers, hotline volunteers, marketing volunteers, and our outreach support.
For helping us build an overall community of trust.
And last but not least, to all these amazing people who have been here since day one, putting all this project together, making sure that they spend each and every day giving back to the community. So above all, I want to thank each and every one who is listed here on this card. Good Neighbor Project is here for you.
I think it's wonderful, and I don't want to diminish anything that the volunteers have done. I mean, it's fantastic. Everything that they do is great, and it definitely is, what good neighbor really means. However, people need leaders, and people need guidance, and they need direction. And that comes from all of you. And I think that the project is wonderful, but your guidance and your appearance in that project literally has changed lives. You've changed the lives of the people you have delivered items to. You have changed the lives of volunteers. You've changed each other's lives, and you've changed the lives of everybody who's watching right now, knowing that there is indeed good out there. We keep hearing, there's good out there, and you guys represent what is good. So I want to thank you from the neighborhood, from the bottom of our hearts, to what you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
An incredible group. They don't get paid. So, right there, can you please send them an email telling them what wonderful things that they are doing. It's very simple, info@goodneighborproject.com, or you can contact them on Facebook, which is good_neighbor_ Project GTA. You can Google it. You'll find it. But use the GTA one because there are other good neighbor projects, thank goodness. And they all do wonderful things as well. This is a comment from Maduba, who is one of the co-founders, that they're definitely going to do their best to keep the Good Neighbor Project going even after the pandemic lifts. For sure, the ones who use our service are the ones who will take even longer to build their support circle again. So they will try and continue it. They could use volunteers. They could use help. Hint, hint. But please send them an email. Let them know that what they do is important. And with that, I will bid you a good night. Thank you so much for joining me today and joining Parker. Take care of yourself. Enjoy the rest of the evening. And take care of each other.
COVID-19, why you do this to me? I really don't like being stuck in quarantine. I have no toilet paper, I don't